Sampling. Sampling is a procedure in which a sample is selected from an individual or a group of people of certain kind for research purpose. In sampling, the population is divided into a number of parts called sampling units. Advantages of sampling includes low cost, less time consuming, scope of sampling is high, accuracy of data is high, organization is convenient, it is suitable in limited resources, and better report. Disadvantages of sampling. It includes high chances of bias. There's difficulty in selecting a truly representative sample. There is inadequate knowledge in the subjects, and there is types of sampling. We have two types. One is probability sampling and the other one is non-probability sampling. Under probability sampling method, we have simple random sampling, stratified random sampling, systematic random sampling, cluster sampling, and multi-stage sampling. Under non-probability sampling method, we have convenience sampling, quota sampling, purposive sampling, snowball sampling, and judgmental sampling. Let's see the first one, which is probability sampling. It is a sampling procedure in which each element of the population has a fixed probabilistic chance of being selected. For example, the lottery method. The first one is simple random sampling. In simple random sampling, each unit in the population has equal and independent chance of being included in the sample. In this method, the samples of required size are selected with the help of a random number table. Over here, the sample mean is the population mean, which is the quantitative variable, and sample proportion is the population proportion, which is the qualitative. Advantages of simple random sampling. Each member in the population gets equal chance. There is more representation and the estimates are easy to calculate. Disadvantages of simple random sampling. Preparation of sampling frame in large-scale surveys is difficult. Minor subgroups may not be represented in the sample. If data is heterogeneous, the estimate is not accurate. Then we have stratified random sampling. Over here, the population is first divided into homogeneous non-overlapping subgroups called strata. A sample of required size is drawn from each strata. Application of stratified random sampling includes administrative convenience to get representation of all subgroups and to get more precise estimate. The third one is systematic random sampling. The samples are selected systematically as the name suggests. Every fourth or the fifth person alternatively is selected in this method from the sampling frame. Sampling interval is equal to population size upon the sample size. For example, in a population of 2000, 400 samples are selected. So sampling interval, which is population size, that is 2000, divided by the sample size, which is 400, gives equal to 50. Then we have cluster sampling. The cluster sampling is preferred when the sampling frame is not available. Sampling is done by selecting cluster-like small unit of geographical area such as a village in rural areas, streets, or wards in urban areas. A simple random sample of clusters is selected and all the elementary units belonging to the selected cluster are surveyed or by population proportion to the size. Example of cluster sampling: evaluation of midday school program. The schools form clusters and the school children form elementary units. The fifth one is multi-stage sampling. This method is similar to cluster sampling, where a population is divided into groups and then samples are randomly selected from within those groups. It's particularly useful when dealing with large geographically dispersed populations where a simple random sample would be impractical. Non-probability sampling. This sampling technique does not use chance selection procedure but relies on personal judgment of the researcher, that is, convenience procedure is used. It does not involve random selection. Under non-probability sampling, the first one is convenience sampling. The selection of the sampling unit is done by the researcher according to the convenience. In this method, the sample consists of elements that are most accessible or easiest to contact. The sample is chosen in a haphazard fashion. For example, while studying consumer behavior, convenience sample may be used. Advantages of convenience sampling: it is least time consuming and an inexpensive method. Disadvantage: this sample will not be a true representation of the population being studied. Then we have quota sampling. The researcher first sets a quota or a number of sampling units to be included in each grouping, but uses convenience sampling to select the units within each grouping. In quota sampling, the general composition of the sample size is fixed in advance. For example, in terms of age, sexual characteristics, and social class. It is a two-stage sampling. The first stage develops control categories on some criteria like the age, gender, etc. In the second stage, the sample elements are selected based on convenience or judgment. Uses of quota sampling. Quota sampling is effective in determining consumer attitude. The third one is purposive sampling. It is a technique where researchers intentionally select participants based on specific characteristics relevant to their study's objectives. The fourth one is snowball sampling. This is used to find members of a group, not otherwise visibly identified. The sample is selected by identifying someone who meets the criteria for inclusion. Then the respondent is asked to recommend others who they may know also meets the criteria. Snowball sampling is useful when the researcher tries to reach the population that is inaccessible or hard to find. However, this method is also not a representative sample, and there are times when it may be the best method available. For example, social stigma faced by HIV patients and study on drug addicts.